defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show, where we make sense of what's going on in this crazy, insane, out of control world. Happy New Year. It is 2018. Can you guys believe it? And it seriously blew me away how fast 2017 went. It's like before you knew it, it's already, time has gone by, it's already Christmas. I mean, oh my gosh. And there's just, we basically we went through the first year of the Trump presidency. It's as crazy as we thought it would be, just always with Trump always on Twitter, having his little comments, and now he's bragging about the size of his button compared to North Korea's. You know, he's called Kim Jong-un Rocket Man. The list goes on and on of all the things that Trump has said on Twitter this last year. It's seriously been crazy. It really is like reality TV, but it's real life. There are no unions. There are no actors. This is all happening for real. It is slightly scary. Now, you know, as crazy as Trump is, I've always said about Trump, I guess I have been pleasantly surprised with what he has done, like getting the tax bill through, and but he really is. He's still wild card, and the things I've always said that kind of feared me about him is the way that things could possibly go with a Trump presidency. Like, he has that personality that he can create, like that cult-like following. What sort of things can that lead to? You know, he has said nationalist sort of things on the campaign trail when he's running for president. I mean, just all sorts of things. You're just like, you just don't know. But I also said, you know, right before Trump, we knew he was going to be president, but he wasn't quite sworn in yet. And I'm kind of pointing out, like, based on the media, how they're going after Trump. Like, hey, you guys could end up actually be making Trump more conservative. And that seems to be a little bit more evident, especially the way that Trump ended the year of 2017, where he got through a tax bill that's been, you know, since George W. Bush got his 2003 tax cuts through. And now people can criticize the tax bill and all that. I mean, yeah, it is still a cluster, you know, but hey, look, there's no longer the individual mandate from Obamacare. Like, that's one way of dismantling Obamacare. That was put in the tax bill. And overall, it does lower taxes. I mean, as long as you can take those deductions. And, you know, so the tax bill overall, I don't know. I guess it depends. Maybe some people, I can understand how people are with this. I mean, overall, I think that, you know, as messy as the last tax bill is that Trump just got through, I do overall think it's better that we have it as opposed to not have it. I'm not saying it's perfect. Obviously, it's nowhere even close to perfect or anything that I'd even want. But it's better than what we had, and that's not saying much. So that's my stance on the tax bill. And, you know, maybe we can dedicate another episode kind of getting more of details on it, or we can go a different direction with that. But that's not what I want to do on today's show. I mean, I just heard something. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I'm sorry, guys. I never got an episode out last week with New Year's going on, and between that and Christmas, it's been so damn crazy. Working at the airport, you know, we had an additional flight for the holidays at night, and holy crap. And the weather, I mean, you guys, I'm sure wherever you live in the United States, we've all been under this, I don't know, like this mini ice age. It's been so damn crazy. I was going night after night. We're at the airport, 18 below, 25 below with wind chill, just nuts. And I can't even tell you guys, I can't even start to tell you the sort of crazy crap that went on. And just like, oh man, it just made for long nights. I didn't get home like days and days on end, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting home, then I got to feed cows, you know, so it's just been nuts. So I'm sorry, guys, I could not get an episode out last week. But here I am now in the new year, 2018. We're ready to start things. We look at the gold market, silver. They're off to a fantastic start. Holy crap. I mean, gold's up around $13.20 an ounce. Just at the end of 2017, what was it hovering? Just before, just under, you know, $1,300 an ounce. It's always, for gold just to break that $1,300 barrier, that's very bullish for gold. And now that it's hit 1320, man, I don't remember the last time it was above 1320. Maybe the middle of last year. So I think, the way this year's starting out, it's looking like, could this possibly be the start of that bull market we've been waiting for in gold since it came down in 2011, 2012? Possibly. I think it's very, very likely, and especially seasonally. You look at gold. Typically, January, February are really good months for gold anyway. So, if you guys, hopefully, you've in some gold stocks, or maybe you have made all your money in cryptos, you don't need to worry about gold. That's what you think. Whatever. Okay. But what I want to do on today's show, man, I just saw the news article up the war on drugs. So one of the very, very few things that Obama did under his presidency was that he didn't put an effort, he didn't want to focus federal resources going after states that have legalized marijuana. Obama, with his attorney general, he's just like, no, we don't need to go after and try to prosecute these states that have legalized it. So it's a way of essentially allowing it to be legalized. Well, now Jeff Sessions, he doesn't like that. He's always been a big opponent of marijuana. Now, looking at Gallup polls, let me just look at this from a populist sort of perspective. 64% of Americans favor legalizing marijuana. Now, where was that at 10 years ago? Well, I don't think it was a majority. So people have definitely moved in this direction, just like they have, and they did with legalizing gay marriage. So here's Jeff Sessions. Basically, what he's doing with his memo that just came out today. This is January 4th. He's basically repealing and doing away with the Cole memo. Now, the Cole memo is the Deputy Attorney General under Obama. He penned this memo back in 2013, and he's pointing out, hey, look, okay, we see that there's some of these states that have legalized pot for medical use or recreational use, and he's saying, look, we have limited resources here at the federal level. We're not going to focus our limited resources on going after these states. However, he says, we will, actually, if I just click on this article here, I have it pulled up, by James M. Cole, Deputy Attorney General. But he does have several bullet points here where he's like, okay, as I just said, we won't go after these states that have legalized marijuana, but if there's things going on in this state, like say these states are allowing the sale of marijuana to minors, we will go after them. Or so basically he lists all these bullet points pointing out, if we witness any of this going on, the federal government will intervene because we don't want this to happen. So like the first bullet point, I'll just kind of go through these in a semi-coherent way. He's pointing out, hey, we don't want marijuana being sold to minors. Okay, that makes sense. Or we don't want these businesses in these states that have legalized marijuana, we don't want them using the sale of marijuana to disguise and to basically help promote criminal enterprises and gangs and all that. We don't want to be funding these guys. And also, other states that have legalized marijuana, we don't want that marijuana to go to states that haven't legalized it yet. There's all these different bullet points where he's pointing out we don't want people under the influence of marijuana to be driving, or we don't want marijuana grown on public property. So he listed 9 bullet points in this memo of things just like that. And I've basically told you about 5 of them. It's like, hey, if these states that have legalized it, if they are doing these things, then the federal government will intervene. But if they're not doing these things, you guys are you're on the up and up. We're going to leave you alone. Yes, marijuana is still illegal on the federal level, but hey, we're going to make this more of a states' rights issue, which a lot of the people who are up in arms over what Jeff Sessions has said today, coming out with this memo, and that's why I'm upset too, and I'm pissed off when I heard about this. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And this is what's so irritating. That's why I'm so mad. I don't give a crap about any of the party things, because we already deal with this totalitarian government from the left wing, the Democrat, the liberal side. These guys always want to think they can spend my money better than I can. They want to fund all these programs. They think the government is the best charity out there, that I don't know how to help people. Only the government can. And the only way they ever get any money is if they steal it from me first. So we got liberals, we got kooks on that side saying that. Then we go to the other side. The right-wingers, the conservatives. These guys, they talk a good game. Oh yeah, we're about a small government. We're about the free market, capitalism. Yes, we love it. But they don't love the free market. They don't love freedom like they talk about. You know, one thing I don't talk about on my show, I don't get into foreign policy, but if you just look at all the failures that this government has done with foreign policy and all these things that, especially looking at the Republican wing, conservative wing, that's their big issue, is defense and all that. But when they intervene in all these countries, they create more problems. So if you tie this in with what the left-wingers do, it's the left-wingers that establish minimum wages in these states, that think they're helping the poor. So now if you look over to the right wing, these guys thinking, oh yeah, if we intervene, if we try to overthrow these dictators, we try to prop up these ones, try to help these countries out, we put sanctions on these ones, we think we can, help promote peace. But that's how all this is all connected together. The left wing and the right wing, they both create unintended consequences because of these big government policies. The government putting its heavy hand in whether it's domestic affairs or international affairs. Both parties do the same garbage. Okay, so now let's go back to the right wing here for a second. Let's pick on these guys. Okay, so now here it is. We have, especially the conservatives, they talk about, oh yeah, states' rights. You want to conventions of the states, But here's this issue with these states that have legalized marijuana, whether it is for medical use or recreational use. Who gives a crap? Now there's these conservatives like Jeff Sessions, former U.S. Senator from Alabama, where he wants to go after these states and just wants the federal government to control what they do. It's so despicable. It's disgusting that here we have these conservatives who talk all day about having a small government. Oh yeah, freedom. No, they don't believe in that when they want to help destroy states that are doing what they think is in their best interest. Look at Colorado, for instance. You realize all the money that has come into that state because of legalizing marijuana? There's been hundreds of millions of dollars that have come into the state. Now, yeah, now that you get the liberals involved, okay, you can go to support children. Whatever you want to do with the money, okay, whatever. I mean, whenever the politicians get a hold of money anyway, they just piss it down the drain. But if you want to argue from their stance, look at all the money it has brought in, so you could argue you could do some good with it. So you can subsidize the hell out of something that I'm sure both parties would appreciate, which that's not an argument I'm going to make. But with this marijuana issue, this war on drugs that was started by Richard Nixon back in 1971, and it was vamped up by Ronald Reagan, and now it continues to this day. What is it, 48 years later? Has the federal government succeeded with the war on drugs? Are there less people doing drugs? Is there less criminal activity out there? No, the government hasn't improved the war on drugs anything. All they've done is they've spent trillions and trillions of dollars supporting all these, these government thugs running around trying to stop people from, if you want to harm your own body with a substance, fine, do it. Now, by me saying that, hey, I'm against the war on drugs, am I saying that, yeah, dude, yeah, you should do all these drugs, man, they're awesome? No, I'm not a drug user, but it's a freedom issue, and if it's something that you want to harm yourself with, you're not harming anybody else, why can't you do it? It's the government is anything but moral. It's the conservatives like to put the element on something that it's kind of like the government and government laws that is kind of what creates morality in society. It's a bunch of BS. Culture and the laws really reflect the morality that's there. So all a free market does, and that's why some people criticize the free market. It's like, oh, but then you'll have this and this and porn shops around every corner. But in the free market, in a capitalist society, to make money, you have to find someone who's willing to buy from your business. It's a voluntary exchange. So if everyone's caught up in all these sort of things that you consider, very sinful and unhealthy, if you're a person who doesn't engage in that stuff, and if most Americans don't think like you, those sort of businesses won't prosper under a free market. Now, if you have a society that's not exactly moral, well then, yeah, some of those businesses will flourish. But they flourish when the government's involved or not. If the government makes something illegal, it comes about through a black market. And see, now that's the issue with the war on drugs. So here we have, because the government says, drugs are illegal, marijuana is considered one of the worst, according to the government. That's supposedly that's not happening if the government has made it illegal. But it is happening. There is an underground, there's a black market. And see, that is one of the big problems with it too, and it's one of the unintended consequences of the government declaring drugs illegal, is that now you have a black market where people, say you want to get some drugs, you want to get some marijuana, you're buying it from a drug dealer, you're trusting a drug dealer. People don't die from an overdose of marijuana. It doesn't happen. Anyone who tells you that someone overdosed on marijuana, it's a bunch of BS. It's because, and if someone did, I'm putting quotes above my head here, if someone did overdose from marijuana, it's because that marijuana was laced with some other drug like heroin. Now, when you're trying to trust a drug dealer, a stranger, a guy who's he's dealing drugs in the black market, he's not, from that very point, he's not on the up and up, right? So you're trusting that sort of guy who's already kind of dishonest. And they try to get you addicted to other drugs. They lace it with other drugs. Look at during Prohibition in the 1920s, alcohol became more dangerous. That's when moonshine came about. Because if I'm running a gang and I'm trying to make profits from selling an illegal substance, like say alcohol back in the 1920s, I'm not going to be shuffling around beer, Bud Light, Budweiser, Coors. No. If someone wants some alcohol, they want the best bang for their buck. So I'm going to pack it. I'm going to make moonshine, something that's got a hell of a lot of alcohol in it. Because when you're transporting this stuff, I don't want to be lugging around a whole pallet of beer in the back of my truck trying to deliver it. No, I want to have, I can use cases that can be the equivalent of 10 pallets of beer, right? So that's how it works with drugs. They make them more potent. They make them more dangerous. You go to weed shops, Denver, or you go over to, over in Oregon, say Portland. You go to these weed shops, they have all these different products, and they tell you the strength of them, the quality of them, all the information you get. And see, that's the other thing about the free market. The free market, it's in the interest of the free market to give the consumer as much information as possible. And people determine how they want to spend their money based on information. Okay, let me ask you guys a question right here. I'm guessing most of you listening to this show, you guys buy goods from Amazon. Well, I would bet money 99% of you, before you buy a thing, you're like, okay, you might have heard about it, or like you're looking at Bluetooth headphones or speakers. You're looking at maybe Alexa compared to the Google version of it. You're trying to figure out, okay, well, yeah, what do I want to get or get people for Christmas? I bet you guys go and you read the reviews. You're scrolling through, okay, oh, this person didn't like this one feature, or it didn't work that well. You kind of get a feel for the product before reading it. You kind of see, okay, if it's got 4.5 stars out of 5 and it's got over 3,000 people that have reviewed it, it's like, oh, damn, that's pretty dang good. That must be a really good product. And so you're willing to dip your toe and purchase that good. Well, look at, when marijuana is above board, people actually know what they're getting. You're trusting a quasi, legitimate business. Now, there's the issue with these pot shops too. They can't put their money into the bank because, under federal regulations, they're really engaged in a, illegal activity. They're making money through an illegal activity. So that's why a lot of these marijuana shops are getting robbed and the crazy stuff that happens because they carry a lot of cash. So this whole issue, and that's what just, again, it's just so frustrating where it doesn't matter. Most people you see arguing, say Facebook, Twitter, the liberal peeps, the conservative peeps, both sides support their own version of big government. Democrats support it from a domestic policy sort of stance, and conservatives support a big government more from the international policies that we engage in, foreign affairs, and also, drugs and the social issues. That's why from the libertarian point of view, I like to look at things, I step back. I just want the government the hell out of the way. Everything they touch, they end up screwing up. Everything they think that they're doing good, they don't do any good. And let's let me tie this all back in now. And you can say, oh, well, today, Justin, we can't embrace the free market because what your point was earlier about a moral society. It's like, well, we don't have a moral society. But now I ask you guys, how did our country get to where it is today? How there is a lot of people, it's not very moral like it used to be. If you want to compare it to the 50s and 60s, how, girls wore turtlenecks around, like it's a different world. You don't see too many girls on turtlenecks. You see the opposite of that. So now, am I saying just girls not wearing turtlenecks, that makes the country not moral? No, that's not what I'm saying, but you kind of get what I'm going with this. Just society in general has been very sexualized. Look at all the sexual harassment claims going on. Everyone's a victim. But all of this stuff, all the ways that people are being treated, the con artists, whatever it is, it all goes in, and it's an interview I did with Keith Weiner. I brought up this point too. It's because, I would argue in large part, because we have a fiat currency. When you have a fiat currency, what do you have? You have a money that's not based on any sort of set value. It's a dishonest money, fiat money. It's the dollar only has value, because other people are willing to accept it. And the government has said in its legal tender laws that the dollar is money and nothing else can be used as money. Nope, you can't use gold and silver. That is not money. But it used to be. That's why people use dollars. When you go to pay your taxes to settle up before tax season in April, you have to pay the tax man. You have to pay Uncle Sam in dollars. You can't pay him in bitcoins. So having this dishonest money has created the sort of butterfly effect through society based on dishonesty. Look at why should people save today? I mean, you should in general, be saving, just planning for a rainy day, that sort of thing. But when you have a fiat system where people consistently lose their purchasing power year after year, where the dollar has lost 97% of its value since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. Heck, the dollar has lost 50% of its value since the dollar went off the gold standard back in 1971. So there is no set value. You could save $1 million. It's like, oh man, with $1 million, you can buy so much today. But what if in 10 years, that $1 million, like I always like to bring up the example, what if $1 million in the future buys you an Apple? Wow, you saved, think of all the hard work you did today to earn that millions of dollars. Maybe it was years and years. Maybe it was a decade or two at your job, saving and saving. And you've been sacrificing, living a cheap lifestyle, not going on any vacations, just trying to save so you could have a bright future. And like, oh, now when I'm older, I'm not going to be able to work like I can now. I'm going to need my money then. Whether to pay for retirement, I know that's not cheap. Or if I eventually, because I didn't get to travel when I was younger, I want to be able to travel when I'm older. So say you saved up that $1 million. But based on my example, after 10 years, that $1 million buys you an Apple. What type of retirement do you have then? You don't. The government has destroyed your retirement. The government has created a disincentive to save. They've corrupted savings. And it corrupts. I mean, it's really a corruption like if you engage in a deal with somebody and you're not getting what you thought you were getting, that's a sort of fraud, isn't it? Our money, the dollar, is fraudulent. It doesn't maintain its value. The Federal Reserve, they're always moaning around and bitching, oh man, we can't quite reach that 2% inflation target. Oh no! Well, that 2% inflation target that the Federal Reserve wants, that's a stated policy, they want to take 2% of your purchasing power away every single year. So if that's your job, if you can be lucky enough to be getting a 2% raise every year, and if we had a 2% inflation rate, you're actually staying even. You're not coming ahead. Most people don't come ahead. They actually decline. That's why if you look at real wages since the dollar went off the gold standard back in 1971, you'll see that real wages have fallen. And now, based on who's using these statistics, you got the Bernie Sanders of the world. They like to talk about, well, it's the evil capitalist. Oh yeah, the evil capitalist. They just want more money for themselves. They don't want it for you. That's why we need socialism. Socialism that can help the poor, and we need more government and more government programs. Bernie, but that is the problem. It's the government getting involved. It's the government destroying money. It's the government putting its heavy hand and making the dollar the only form of money. Saying that anything else that you try to use as money, you can go to prison for. That is the problem, Bernie. It is government getting in the way. And so we don't want more government. Bernie, I'm sorry. Some of the things you say, you are pointing your little index finger at the problem. But your solutions are way the hell wrong. And maybe you should go live in some socialist country. And okay, Bernie, I was just in Cuba a few months ago. Maybe you should go live in Cuba. Oh yeah, I'm sure you'll love it there. You can see how communism works. It doesn't. And so just seeing this little memo from Jeff Sessions today, Attorney General, I'm hoping he needs to step down. Jeff Sessions has been a disaster for the Attorney General. In his little memo here, he's pointing out that, basically the way that that Congress has determined that marijuana is a dangerous drug and that marijuana activity is a serious crime. So he wants to go after people engaged in the marijuana business. Now, with what Jeff Sessions has done here is a lot of these legitimate businesses in Colorado, these marijuana businesses, they're scared crapless. Are they going to have a business tomorrow, in a month, in 2 months? They don't know. There's been people who have put their life savings to making these businesses. And here's Jeff Sessions trying to destroy these people. It's just disgusting, and that's what I've talked about all in this show. How it doesn't matter what party you're from, each party has its own form of big government it likes to utilize, and it wants to show off its muscle. That's what Jeff Sessions is doing here. And I'm not for using any sort of drugs, but the war on drugs is a complete disaster. I'll do another episode on this. There's so many facts and figures, and there's even a lot of people who have problems with, say, heroin addiction. Actually, they use marijuana to try to wean these heroin addicts off of heroin. So it's actually it's used medically to help these drug users. It's the Jeff Sessions of the world. These guys argue, oh yeah, marijuana, gateway drug. The gateway drug thing is a bunch of BS. That's not true. I know plenty of people have smoked marijuana, do smoke marijuana, and they have never tried any other drugs. That it is a bunch of crap. But now you start getting involved and say you're used to engaging in the black market to get marijuana. Now that is where just because you're already kind of dabbling in that illegality sort of thing, that could somehow so it's not the substance itself, just to clarify, but just how you're already engaging with those sort of people. You've created these relationships. What people say, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I guess if you hang out with a bunch of drug dealers, you might become a druggie, right? So it has nothing to do with marijuana. And then also, and I know Mark Thornton has mentioned this too. Mark Thornton, he's the first guest I've had on my show, and I still need to have him back at some point. It's been a few years now. We can talk about this war on drugs. He's written on Mises.org, pointing out, hey, look, states that have passed and legalized marijuana, those states actually see a fall in people dying and overdosing from these dangerous drugs. So That's a positive, isn't it? And just looking at this marijuana issue, so we've had 30 states that have legalized it, and we've had 8 states who have legalized it for recreational use. Well, California just it went into effect that you can now use it for recreational use. And now, so here's basically Jeff Sessions, a few days after California had legalized it for recreational use. He comes up with his own little memo where he wants to go after these states that have legalized marijuana. And so here we are, ladies and gentlemen, start of 2018. We're off to a crazy start already. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic year for all of us, despite all the crazy crap that's going on in this intervening government trying to destroy every part of our little lives. But regardless of what the government does, don't ever use that as an excuse to, oh, well, because I didn't do this or I didn't want to pursue my dreams, it's because, well, the government, no. No, don't ever let the government get in the way of what you want to do in life. Yes, they're going to make the road a little bit harder, but if you want to succeed, you can succeed. And so I'm going to try to do that. I plan on having an awesome 2018. I'm going to be working as hard as ever. I'm going to try to get back on schedule with this podcast. Man, these last few months, I've been so good prior to these last few months of always coming out with an episode every Tuesday. Man, I could always able to do one. But now I've struggled to be able to do that. I actually plan on going to Singapore in a few weeks here. One of the guys that I've met on the Contra cruise, he actually lives in Singapore. He's going to let me stay at his place. And I'm trying to see the world. I want to be able to bring a different perspective to you guys. And by traveling the world, I can do that. And who knows what's going to happen with Bitcoin in this year to come. I don't know. Bitcoin's around 15,000 now. It's all-time high was just under 20,000. You have gold off to a awesome start for the year. Is gold going to be the place to be compared to Bitcoin? Or who knows? Are they both just going to do awesome 2018? Stay tuned. I will keep you guys updated here on the Justin Moore Show. And if you guys want to, and if you want to buy some goods from Amazon, go to my website. Go to justinmooreshow.com. Moore is spelled M-O-H-R. If you buy your goods through my Amazon link on my website, I get a small commission back. It costs you nothing extra. Great way to help out the show. Catch up on old episodes right through my website. You can join Tom Wood's Liberty Classroom through one of my links on the website. That's all awesome ways to help me out and for you to stay informed. And I thank you guys for being here. I will talk with all you guys next week, and I'm looking forward to it. This is Justin Moore, signing off.